classic example of that is training our pets. And so at first, when we're training pets, we tend to give them a treat every time they do something that we like. And this is what's called continuous reinforcement. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to get into the idea of reinforcement schedules. So a continuous reinforcement schedule is quite simply every time a learner has a behavior that is desirable, you give them reinforcement. Or you could flip that on its head, and if every time they do something that is not desirable, then you present or take away a stimulus that tries to get them to cut down on that behavior. But the key here is that with continuous reinforcement, whether you're giveth or taketh away something you like or you don't like, it's based on every single time you do the thing that you're either trying to get the learner to do more of or to get the learner to do less of. Okay, so for example, every time you say shake and the dog puts its paw on your hand, if you give it a treat every single time it does that, that's continuous reinforcement. But over time, you don't want to have every single thing the dog does tied to getting a treat. So over time, then maybe instead of every single time it puts its paw on your hand when you say shake, maybe you only do it every so often. So you see down here, right? You give it a treat the first time it does it. You do so again the second time, but the third time you don't. But then you say shake again, and if it puts its paw up, you give it the fourth time, and then the fifth time, but maybe not the sixth time, and then the seventh time, but not the eighth time. The idea here is that it's not every single time you give the dog the treat, but ultimately, the dog, if it gets the treat enough, is going to make this association that if it puts its paw on your hand after you say shake, things good are probably about to happen, i.e. getting a treat. So this would be an example of partial reinforcement, where not every time the behavior takes place, reinforcement takes place. Continuous reinforcement is that every single time the behavior takes place, reinforcement takes place. So when we're talking about partial reinforcement, there's these different schedules, okay? And so Skinner talked about different schedules, and we're going to get back to that Skinner video in a moment.